Welcome to Haunted Talks, the official podcast of The Haunted Walk, offering ghost tours and paranormal adventures in Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto, Ontario, and online experiences to anyone in this mortal realm. My name is Jim Dean. I am the creative director, and it is my privilege to be your haunted host for this episode. Think back to one of your strangest dreams. One that left you afraid to close your eyes and go back to sleep, fearing that the same heart-stopping terror might return. Or was it a dream that sparked your curiosity, making you wonder if something beyond our everyday experience had reached out to you? Maybe it was a moment of revelation, an insight, where suddenly everything made sense. The pieces falling into place as if the universe had been waiting for you to see the truth. Perhaps it was one of those jarring prophetic dreams, the kind where you wake up certain something terrible is about to happen, only to receive devastating news a short time later. Or maybe it was the time you eagerly recounted a strange dream to your partner, only to watch their eyes widen in shock because they had the exact same dream. We certainly all have those universal nightmares: falling, being chased, standing on the edge of our own demise, before being jolted awake, heart pounding and covered in sweat. Or maybe it's something far more terrifying. The night you awake, frozen in sleep paralysis, suddenly aware of a shadowy presence in your bedroom. Whatever that moment is for you, let's pause for a moment and reflect. How did it make you feel? Content? At ease? Warm? Comforted? Perplexed? In awe? Or cold? Terrified? Shocked? Stomach churning? Dreams stir a whirlwind of emotions, yet most of us wake up with more questions than answers, fueling our deep human need for clarity and explanation. But the mystery of dreams is one we never quite unravel. For many, though, dreams become something far worse than mystery. They become the setting for our most terrifying moments. Heart-stopping chases, encounters with shadowy entities, and ominous premonitions that linger in our minds for days, if not years. And the worst part for us? Sleep isn't optional. Our bodies demand it. So we return, night after night, to these dark places, carrying nothing but the faint hope that this time we'll have sweet dreams. There are many theories as to why dreams work like this. Entire industries thrive on dream interpretation, with countless dictionaries promising meaning to every symbol. Science, too, seeks answers. Neurologists study the sleeping brain, trying to understand why it conjures such vivid and often terrifying visions. But for every theory, more questions arise. Why can't we accurately read text or numbers in a dream? How can some people take control of their dreams, while others remain helpless? Why do some claim to see glimpses of the future? And how is it possible for two people to share the same dream? And of course, the question that haunts us the most: why do dreams slip away so quickly, fading like smoke even after leaving us shaken, trembling in the dark? In today's episode, we will wade into the mysterious oblivion that is dreaming, a time where our minds are supposed to be at rest, but they remain vividly awake. A time when our subconscious conjures spine-tingling visions, unsettling our deepest moments of peace. We will explore some of those peculiarities, deconstruct the nightmares that ironically keep us awake, and share some truly baffling mysteries of the sleeping mind. All taken together, we have to wonder, what is going on when we sleep? And perhaps, most disturbingly, are we communicating with things unseen during our slumber? Is there something or someone that remains beyond our understanding, just at the precipice of sleeping and waking? Something or someone that is eager to connect and communicate with us, or worse, eager to terrify us. But before we get to that, this is the final weekend of our March break ghost tours. So there's still time to create some spooky, unforgettable moments with friends and family. Let our expert storytelling tour guides whisk you away for a night of suspense, drama, and thrills as we explore the haunted past of Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto. And if you are already dreaming of your summer adventure plans, we got great news. Tickets are now on sale for most of our ghost tours and paranormal experiences throughout the summer. Now is the perfect time to secure your spot and experience the eerie history, ghostly encounters, and lingering mysteries that make our stories so fascinating. For tickets and information, visit hauntedwalk.com. We also love to connect with fellow ghost story lovers. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky, all at Haunted Walk. And in a few days, I'll be posting on there a question that ties right into this episode. I want to hear your weirdest or most frightening dream. If you ever had a dream that felt more like a haunting, I want to know about it. So check us out, Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And if you're enjoying Haunted Talks, be sure to follow, rate, and review the show. It's one of the best ways to support us, and we always love reading your comments. Your reviews help us keep the ghost stories and nightmares coming. Let's start our episode off on a slightly lighter note, before delving into some of the more terrifying nightmares. Many of us are familiar with what is commonly called a déjà vu dream, and according to most surveys, the majority of the population have reported having one. To briefly recap what these are, this is a type of perplexing dream that you normally recognize sometime later, when you're out living your life as normal, and suddenly everything seems vaguely familiar. For some, it's clear you've been in this exact situation before, but you just can't quite put your finger on when. For others, the experience is even more vivid, and you can recall precisely what's about to happen next. All because you have dreamed this before. There have been varying explanations of how this might occur. A blip in the matrix, perhaps? Or just a series of eerie coincidences aligning at the perfect moment. For those who experience dreams of a more prophetic nature, it feels like something far beyond chance, a glimpse into the future, unfolding with unsettling inevitability. No matter how hard you try, you can't escape what happens next. How did I know that so-and-so was going to speak? How did I predict the door would slam shut just seconds before the wind caught it? People who experience these recurring déjà vu dreams replay the details again and again, searching for an explanation. But no matter how deep they dig, none ever comes. There is another level of these déjà vu dreams where you actually foresee what is going to happen in the future. A terrible dream filled with foreboding dread that somehow comes true. There are two very famous examples of these kind of dreams, the first being from President Abraham Lincoln. According to the tale, Abe shared with his wife and a few close friends a very strange dream. He was walking through the White House and came upon an odd sight in the East Room. It appeared that a corpse had been laid out and covered with a sheet. Shocked at the sight, Abe asked one of the attending guards what had happened. He sadly recounted that the body was that of the president, who had been killed by an assassin. In recalling the dream later, Lincoln clarified that the body under the sheet didn't appear to be his own, so he wasn't particularly frightened that his death might be imminent. But perhaps he should have been, as only a few short days later, Lincoln was assassinated, and his corpse was covered by a sheet in the East Room of the White House. Some have called into question the account, which was only relayed years after it supposedly happened by one of Lincoln's friends. However, other people who were present for the original conversation remember Lincoln recounting the strange dream about the corpse and openly wondering what it could symbolize. Putting some variations aside, was Lincoln able to predict his own death through a dream? Did he foresee the tragedy that was about to befall him? Or was it merely a coincidence that the president had a dream about a corpse in the White House shortly before he was assassinated? Lincoln was certainly aware that he was a controversial figure, and an attempted assassination was always a possibility. Perhaps the stress of the situation and all the corpses that had been recently piling up from the Civil War meshed into his unconscious mind and produced this strange vision. But this wasn't the only case of tragic dreams coming true. Another famous case involves the Titanic sinking in 1912. In fact, in episode 152, I interviewed Terry Keefe, author of Premonitions of the Titanic disaster. One case that remains quite perplexing is the dreams that Connor Middleton, a man who had excitedly booked passage on the doomed vessel, had. As he was preparing for the voyage in early April, he was struck with two terrible nightmares on consecutive nights. The dream showed the ship sinking, with its keel in the air, and frightened crew and passengers swimming in the icy waters. Although Middleton was initially looking forward to the trip, he decided to cancel his tickets and stay home. He assumed the dreams must have been foreshadowing homesickness or reflecting on his own doubts about the trip. Well, of course, the Titanic did end up sinking, and the scene that Middleton had seen in his dreams came true, even if there was no one else there to witness them. To ensure his account was documented as a genuine experience, he recorded formal sworn and notarized statements from multiple friends who had heard about his terrifying dream. They confirmed that long before the Titanic sank, Middleton had told them of his nightmares and reasons for canceling his tickets. Not everyone is convinced about these so-called prediction dreams or the more tepid déjà vu dreams. Perhaps, after all, it's coincidence. We dream so often, and only a very small number of our dreams actually come true. So statistically, it's bound to happen on occasion. But what about some of the more unexplained dream phenomena, in instances that truly give us pause? One of the most intriguing is the concept of shared or mutual dreams. It's likely another experience that many of us can relate to. You're excitedly telling a friend or family member about a dream you had last night, when they suddenly go quiet and wide-eyed reveal that they had had a very similar dream. I would like to share with you one of our favorite stories to tell in Kingston, Ontario, about this exact kind of phenomenon. A student had rented a room in one of the apartments from a woman who was his supervisor at the convenience store where he worked. After a few months, she moved out, and the student convinced another co-worker to move in and start sharing the rent. On the first night, they began to realize that something in the apartment was terribly wrong. The student woke up in the middle of the night after having a terrible nightmare. He was covered in sweat and started to sit up in order to get a drink of water when he felt a heavy weight push down on his chest. He was unable to move, and he felt the distinct feeling of hands closing around his throat. There was no one in the room with him, but he was completely paralyzed and unable to breathe. After struggling for several moments, he started to black out, when suddenly, he woke up. He realized it had all been a dream and started to get out of bed, when he felt a choking feeling and was pushed back into the bed. As he started to black out, he woke up and realized again it had only been a dream. This scene repeated itself more than a dozen times before he finally woke up and was able to get out of bed. He walked down the hallway and into the kitchen, where he saw a strange man facing away from him. As he turned, the man's head was tilted sharply to one side, as though his neck had been broken. His head was long and looked like it was stretched out, with nothing but dark holes where his eyes and mouth should have been. At this point, the student once again woke up. Finally, this time for real. He went out to the living room and found his new roommate sitting in a chair, looking pale and terrified. The student told him he had just had an awful dream that he had to tell him about. His roommate replied saying, "No, I had a dream I need to tell you about." He had woken up an hour earlier with the same feeling of being paralyzed and choked to death. He had managed to very slowly roll himself over in bed, only to see a man hanging from a noose that was attached to his light fixture. The man's neck was broken, and he slowly turned around to face him. The man was clearly dead, and yet his eyes moved around to look straight towards him, while he lay there for several seconds, unable to move. It was at that point that he woke up and realized it had been nothing but a dream. They decided to move out as soon as possible. But over the next 2 months, several more of their friends had encounters in the apartment. On one occasion, they were supposed to be going out to dinner with a friend after work. He came a little early, so he gave him their keys and told him to meet them at their apartment. When they arrived, they found him in a terrible state, completely paranoid and insisting on leaving immediately to get away from the feeling of being watched. Other friends had this feeling as well, but nothing strange ever seemed to happen if there was a woman present in the apartment. About 6 months later, at the college cafeteria, the student overheard some women talking about an apartment they had lived in, which they thought was haunted. He interrupted to ask them where it was, and was surprised to find out it was the same place that he had lived. The women said that they had never personally had any problems there, but that any time one of their boyfriends was left in the apartment alone, they would have terrible dreams or experience the disturbing sensation of being watched. The student never did find a convincing explanation for the haunting, and is still reluctant to talk about it today. Conveniently for us, that building was located on Elm Street. There are those who claim these experiences aren't accidental at all, but something or someone pulling us into them. These dreams are often called meeting or meshing dreams. Two people, usually in the same space, have the exact same dream where they experience the scene from their own perspective and even exchange dialogue. Pretend in a dream you're walking down a street, dipping into different stores and cafes, shopping, and sampling some tasty treats. One person may suggest you go into the new store that had just opened on the corner, and the other person may agree and follow along. The scene continues in a fairly ordinary way, almost like a conversation. Or, one person in the dream may take control and direct the dream to nightmarish proportions. Perhaps when you enter the next cafe, they suggest going downstairs into the creepy basement, and suddenly you find yourself in a horror movie, running from a chainsaw-wielding villain. Or even more terrifyingly, your friend, who is sleeping nearby, is that scary villain with the chainsaw, chasing you through this fresh nightmare unconsciously unfolding. Some people who have these dreams appear to communicate with each other. Somehow our brains might be able to pick up on what the other person is dreaming, and even manipulate the dream in a lucid state. Consider that horrifying prospect for a moment. With enough practice, some people are able to have their mesh dreams on command and personally direct their friend's nightmare. The next time you fall asleep near someone, consider that disturbing possibility. That person could possibly manipulate what you're experiencing while you dream. Some of us are probably quite intrigued by this, and maybe our dark sides are wondering how we could give our friends or family a big budget scare tonight. How on earth do these types of dreams happen? Well, unfortunately, we don't have any definitive answers. Plenty of controlled experiments have been conducted where the two people record all their observations independently and never communicate before or after the shared dream, proving that these types of dreams are a real occurrence existing outside of the realm of suggestion. Somehow, even without communication, they still report having nearly the exact same dream. For those analyzing dreams outside of the scientific community, it's potential evidence that we may be communicating with things or people or realms unseen while we slumber. If two people can access the same thoughts and same experiences during sleep without any outside manipulation, there has to be something else going on. Or perhaps one participant is intent on directing the show, and they're especially adept at another mysterious element of dreaming: lucid dreams. This phenomenon happens to a fair number of people, but only a few can truly harness and control it. Lucid dreaming refers to a type of dream where your conscious mind can seemingly manipulate your unconscious thoughts. You control the show, so to speak. For many, we experience this between the state of deep sleep, or REM, and waking. You may remember a time when you were on the verge of waking up and maybe having a particularly pleasant dream, so you deliberately try to prolong it. I've certainly had this experience where I have an interesting dream going on and I really want to know what's going to happen next. Perhaps you urge your dream self to take the path down through the meadow, past the calming stream that is trickling through the fields. You find yourself able to conjure up that image of that pretty stream and even urge encounters with cute woodland creatures who scurry around you. That's a mild and very pleasant form of lucid dreaming, one that most of us can do from time to time. But what if you could harness that type of dreaming and use it regularly for deeper experiences? For many, lucid dreaming is far more than just prolonging a good dream before facing the chill of waking up and starting the day. Across cultures and centuries, dreams have been seen as powerful, and lucid dreaming is often regarded as a technique to receive messages from the other side. The lucid dreamer deliberately enters that transitory space between sleep and wakefulness, walking the fine line between the two worlds. Through focused mental techniques, they attempt to communicate with entities, realms, or even people unseen. For some, it begins like any paranormal investigation encounter, with the familiar questions. Is there anyone here? Does anyone wish to communicate with me? Other lucid dreamers try to access a space or room in their dream that is familiar, a place where they've connected with people before. And when they arrive, they often find figures waiting for them, or they welcome others to join them. Exactly how lucid dreams unfold depends on the dreamer, their intent, and their technique. But like all dreams, the experience can range from deeply peaceful to utterly terrifying. Some lucid dreamers claim to receive messages from people beyond, often fairly benign exchanges of goodwill or love. These types of dreams can be likened to the messages a medium or sensitive may receive from the beyond. Other lucid dreamers try to access a different realm to receive more foreboding messages, warning of pain or suffering. They deliberately try to access nightmares and painful encounters to see into the future. People who study or practice lucid dreaming are unsure if this type of deeper communication and connection is accessible to everyone. There's evidence that lucid dreaming can be learned and practiced by most, mainly by harnessing that critical time between sleeping and waking. But the type and extent of visions that you may experience, and the pleasant or horrifying things you may see, may be dependent on some innate ability. A fair warning, if any of you are thinking of trying this tonight, many practiced lucid dreamers remind us that the experience should be taken seriously, as you might be inadvertently entering other places and accessing information otherwise unknown. Now let's wade into a far more petrifying type of dream. One that is disturbingly common. Death dreams. Some people have them on a regular basis, but most of us have at least experienced a few dreams where we are dying or facing imminent death. For some, it's a reoccurring dream of falling into nothingness, where you are desperately trying to clutch onto something solid to hold on to. For others, it's the searing agony of being stabbed or impaled, the pain slicing through the body with horrifying realism. Some experience medical emergencies, a heart attack, a seizure, where their dream self is trapped in paralysis, unable to move, unable to scream. Occasionally having these experiences is scary enough, but there are some people who report having death dreams on a regular basis, some almost nightly. They go through immense stress and searing pains in their dreams, stuck in an overwhelming loop of dying again and again. How do you close your eyes, knowing what awaits you on the other side of sleep? How do you rest when your dreams feel more like a curse? It's a nightmare that never ends, both in the waking and the sleeping worlds. Interpretations of death dreams vary, but it's usually the body's response to some kind of stress. It could be physical stress, like a muscle pull or an illness that tugs at your nerves, even when you're asleep. It could be a reoccurring issue, like sleep apnea, that abruptly interrupts your breathing. But for many, it is mental stress, something in your life that is gnawing at your restless mind. Although we can never fully predict or plan our dreams, death dreams tend to happen when we're stressed in our day-to-day lives or facing a critical decision. So some simple relaxation and meditation can often combat the occasional death nightmare. But all of that is little comfort to the people who face these dreams on a nightly basis, forever stuck facing their own demise. Adding to the terror of death dreams are the unsettling physical sensations that often accompany them. For many, dreaming isn't just a mental process, it manifests in our bodies as well. Most of us have experienced that sudden, involuntary jolt, a moment where something in our dream coincides with a physical sensation, as if we're being pushed, thrown, or struck. The shock ripples through our entire body, jolting us awake, heart pounding. That phenomenon also tends to occur when we enter the early stages of sleep, when our muscles begin to relax and prepare for REM. But in those moments, the boundary between dream and reality blurs. The mind and body colliding in a way so vivid, so real, that it leaves us shaken, briefly leaving us to wonder if we can risk going back to sleep. Other physical sensations can strike in the middle of sleep, and perhaps these are the most terrifying of all. The most common? Sleep paralysis. This phenomenon occurs when the conscious mind awakens during REM sleep, our deepest stage of rest, while the body remains completely immobilized. You're fully aware, eyes open, surroundings familiar, yet you cannot move. For some, it feels like an unbearable weight pressing down on their chest, crushing, suffocating, making even the smallest breath a struggle. For others, it's as if they've been bound, tied down by unseen forces, their muscles refusing to respond to command, no matter how desperately they fight to break free. And then, there are the shadows. the figures, the things we see or sense lurking in the dark corners of our bedrooms. Often described as shadowy figures or demons, these entities have appeared in folklore across cultures for centuries. They are seen as harbingers of misfortune, omens of something dark to come. Some legends even claim they attempt to steal children away in the middle of the night, slipping through the veil of sleep to grasp at the helpless. Those who experience this during episodes of sleep paralysis often describe them in striking detail. Some as vivid, unmistakable beings, their presence so real it defies disbelief. Others see only shifting shadows, flickering, never fully materializing, yet unmistakably there. Their appearance during sleep paralysis is one of the most universally terrifying experiences of the human condition. And like so many mysteries of dreaming, there is no clear explanation, only fear and the lingering question, what if they aren't just dreams? For most of you who are familiar with the ghost stories we often share, you may have noticed that many paranormal experiences happen to people when they are transitioning from a period of sleep to awareness. Some of these encounters could be related to this terrifying phenomenon of sleep paralysis, or it could be something different, but related. The ghostly realm may have challenges contacting the living, and our time of sleep might be especially suited for communication. Finally, there's the very strange occurrence of sleepwalking. Like lucid dreaming, many people have experienced a very mild form of sleepwalking, particularly when younger, but only a few have these experiences regularly. Sometimes, the tasks that people complete during sleepwalking are fairly innocuous and mundane. People are known to go to the kitchen and make themselves a snack, or put on their clothes to get ready for work, things that follow a pattern or repetition in their lives. People usually go back to bed or wake themselves up slowly and come to full consciousness before doing anything drastic. But others have done more horrifying things, including murder. A very famous and controversial case of sleepwalking murder was tried in the early 1990s in Canada. That case involved Kenneth James Parks, who managed to drive over 20 kilometers to the home of his in-laws before attacking and killing one of them. During the trial, experts testified that Ken was suffering from a sleep disorder and was, in fact, sleepwalking when he went on his murderous rampage. He was acquitted, but the case was appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court of Canada, which ultimately upheld the verdict. In a landmark ruling, the court clarified that sleepwalking is not considered a mental disorder under the law, meaning Parks could not be held criminally responsible or committed to psychiatric institutions. The ruling classified his condition as a non-insane automatism, a rare legal defense in which a person commits an act while in an unconscious or involuntary state, free of intent. Because of this, his acquittal was final, and he walked free. The Parks case is just one example of the blurred line between waking and sleeping, where nightmares slip into reality and the living face the consequences. For most of us, sleep is a refuge, a time to rest weary minds and exhausted bodies, drifting into a state of relaxation that waking life could never replicate. Our bodies crave it, our minds depend on it, and we surrender to its embrace, trusting it will bring us peace. But we know better. Sometimes sleep opens the door to something far more sinister. Closing our eyes doesn't always bring rest. In fact, the horrors we encounter in sleep may be far more alarming than anything we could ever imagine while awake. And yet, no matter how much we fear what lurks in the darkness of our dreams, we must sleep. But if dreams are a door, we have to wonder who or what is waiting for us on the other side. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. For information and to get tickets for any of our ghost tours or paranormal adventures in Kingston, Ottawa, or Toronto, please visit our website at hauntedwalk.com. In the next few days, I'll be posting a question on social media asking you to share your most terrifying dream. So be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky, all at Haunted Walk. As always, a special thanks to our hardworking and sleep-deprived Haunted Talks team, including our outstanding audio editor, Michelle Dennis, and Brittany Boss, who researched and wrote this episode. If you are enjoying the show, we would ask you to please follow, rate, and review us wherever you listen, and to please recommend this podcast to anyone else you know who enjoys the stuff of nightmares. Until we meet again, and after this episode, more so than ever, sweet dreams.